Nearly 6 centuries ago, William Douglas rode into Stirling Castle, carrying a document that should have made him completely safe. It was a promise from the King of Scotland, a royal letter of safe conduct. It basically said, William Douglas may enter the castle, speak with the king, and leave without being harmed. To William Douglas, this was very clear, very official. The king's signature written in glorious, fluids. You would think that the King of Scotland would actually honour it. Before we continue, we need to go back 12 years, because this was not the Douglas' family's first disastrous royal dinner.
Bruh.
In 1440, another young William Douglas and his brother were invited to eat with 10-year-old King James II at Edinburgh Castle. According to the legend, the meal was interrupted when somebody placed a black bull's head on the table, because apparently medieval Scotland did not believe in subtle foreshadowing. Ugh, look at it. Tongue hanging out. Even the bull looks confused about how it became involved. The head symbolized certain death. The Douglas brothers were dragged outside, given a quick trial, and found guilty of crimes that could not be proven, but were then executed for just in cases, and to break the power of the late Archibald Douglas's family. This betrayal became known as the Black Dinner, or, to some, a regular Thursday night in medieval Scotland. Young James was king, and happened to be fond of the young Douglas brothers. His protest against the execution was ignored. But he was only 10 at the time, and had little control over the child-murdering adults governing Scotland. Douglas Royal Dinner number 1, also terrible. "12 years later, James had changed. He was now 21 and had been ruling personally since he was 18. 3 years of big boy kingdom stuff. But still too young to rent a carriage. The frightened little boy king from the Black Dinner was now an adult king, determined to control Scotland himself. And standing in his way was William Douglas, the 8th Earl of Douglas. Not the William killed at the Black Dinner, different William. Same extremely hazardous name. At the time, William Douglas controlled enormous wealth, land, and political influence. He had also formed an alliance with Joan Crawford. Wrong Crawford. I mean the Earl of Crawford and John of Islay. Isla. He was Lord of the Isles. Isles. These were not 3 men starting a typical boys-only casual group chat. Together, they represented a serious challenge to the king's authority, and it was no secret that the king did not like this at all. What James needed was for William Douglas, John, and Joan Crawford to break the alliance. He could have sent an army and marched on Douglasdale. He could have opened negotiations somewhere neutral. Probably not Edinburgh Castle. Instead, he invited William to Stirling Castle. Yay, a castle! For dinner! Again. What could possibly go wrong? You would probably imagine somebody in the Douglas family might have introduced a rule by now. Never accept dinner invitations from Scottish kings. Why isn't that rule 1? So James issued a "Trust me bro" formal letter guaranteeing his safety. William accepted the invitation and entered Stirling Castle believing that the king's written word would protect him. That evening, inside the walls of Stirling Castle, nothing happened. They ate, they drank, they made polite conversation. Nobody discussed the alliance. It was the medieval equivalent of, let's just enjoy dinner and circle back tomorrow. Try the pork pie. James smiles. Douglas smiles, probably wondering what the king meant by circle back. He would be super annoyed if it was about his alliance with John and Joan Crawford. The guards probably looked like they knew what was going to go down, and they were ready. Brunch. The following day, James finally raised the issue. He ordered William to break the alliance. William was not afraid to refuse. After all, he had a piece of paper. According to the surviving account, William told him, "I might not, I will not," and James responded, "Since you will not, I shall," which is an extremely dramatic reply. The king was no stranger to drama. But what he said does not clearly explain what James intended to do. 2 seconds later, James had reached for his dagger. What are you going to do? Stab me? And the king stabbed William. Once James attacked, several of the men around him reportedly joined in. According to the Chronicle account, William suffered 26 wounds before Sir Patrick Grey struck him with a poleaxe in an act of complete bravery. Sir Patrick Grey was smart enough to know that 26 stab wounds was not enough to take down a 26-year-old. The royal promise that had brought William safely into the room would not get him back out again. William's body was then yeeted from the castle window into the garden below.
Huh?
Probably upsetting the groundskeeper.
Dude.
The image of William Douglas being thrown from a window at Stirling Castle became inseparable from the betrayal. The Douglas family was understandably not delighted with the murder at the hands of the king. It was enough to move the rule to number 2. They marched on Stirling Castle and reportedly attached the king's safe conduct letter to a horse's tail, dragging it through the town. This was essentially a medieval 1-star review, and the message was clear. The king's written promise was as worthless as the review. The killing did not immediately destroy the Douglases. It pushed the conflict into open confrontation. Over the following 3 years, James broke the power of the Black Douglases. The alliance fractured. And in 1455, James had won. The Douglas forces were defeated at Arkenholm, and the surviving leaders were killed, captured, or forced into exile. It was a victory for the king, and all he had to do was personally murder a man who had entered his castle under his protection and promise of safe conduct. At the Black Dinner, James had been the child watching helplessly as the Douglas brothers were betrayed. 12 years later, he was the man reaching for the dagger. History does not always repeat itself. Sometimes it waits for the child to grow up. And if your name is William Douglas, always remember rule number 2.